The Crimson Temple is the seventh full-length album from Varathron, probably one of the better-known Greek black metal bands at this point, and one who haven't been especially prolific. Or I don't know if they were bestsellers back in the day, but it was certainly a band that was a huge part of the zeitgeist of Greek black metal, Hellenic black metal, and the choices that you had outside of the Scandinavian sound in the 90s. And for me, that meant the late 90s was finding albums like Walpurgis Nacht, and really connecting with those records and finding that there were other sides to black metal that were important. So this was a very important and influential band who introduced ideas of different types of melody and other influences of heavy and doom metal into black metal. It really got me into black metal in a big way. So I am very biased as a longtime fan of this group, whose I've appreciated all of their releases up to this point. Now, I think there was this transitional point in the band where Crow's Reign showed up, and people weren't sure what to think of it. It was either too backwards thinking or too forwards thinking, depending on who you talk to, and not everyone liked the focus of that album. And they pretty well ironed it out pretty quickly beyond that point, and they've been successful ever since, sort of becoming a very steady force in black metal since then, and they built up quite a lot of popularity since. Now, I think that the thing is that the last album from this band was very nostalgic. I think it felt like it pulled back to all the biggest and best known attributes of Varathron in the 90s and brought them up to scale nowadays. And it was such an effective record that, appreciated with time, it became kind of one of my favorites and an easy one to return to for the Varathron sound. So what did they do after that? I mean, it's been several years, and well, what's the best way to return from several pandemic years and a lot of successful tours and all that? It's a really big album, and I would say up front, that's what this is. It's a really big, exuberant album, and we'll cut to a song here just to get an idea of what I mean. So if I were to sit there and say, what do I want from a Varathron album in 2023? I like a big production. And I don't necessarily mean production values, although they are there, and this is quite a big sounding album. I think they put 11 big art pieces into this, the actual product here. They put a lot of time into the lyrics and the presentation and the sort of horrified stories that they tell throughout this record. It's all very well thought out, and I don't know exactly how much of a concept album it is, so much as just a big Varathron album, and one that presents very different experiences within each song, but certainly has two pretty distinct sides, and that is a very exuberant, big, and kind of colossal opening moment with the first several songs, and these build up momentum towards the second half of the album, which is, I wouldn't say more experimental, but covering a lot more of the bases to their oeuvre as it has expanded in the last, I would say, about 20 years. So we get a lot of the best elements of Varathron without some of the redundancies that we found on an album like Stygian Forces of Scorn, which I'm a huge fan of, but there are a couple of tracks that are a little similar to one another, and this record finds something new to do with each song, and I think that feeds into the fact that they've gotten Paolo Girardi to create art for each of those pieces, and it's an easy way to get excited about going through the booklet and checking out this record when it shows up, because they put a lot of thought into every piece of it. And I think that not every song necessarily matches up to, I guess, what I would envision as an aspect of Varathron. I think some of the wah pedal use is all right. It kind of reminds me of Amorphous a little bit here and there. Naturally, you'll want to compare some of these songs to Rotting Christ because they're at a faster pace, and a lot of people remember Varathron for some of their slower pieces earlier on, but their sound did develop beyond that, and this is kind of very much within their wheelhouse and what you would consider classic Varathron. And I think there's something new here, there's something old here, there's something kind of energetic about this record that makes it all a very good full listen. And I don't just say that as an enthused, hyped fan. I think this is just a good place to start if you're not familiar with Varathron and you want to see, what they're doing now, but also remnants of what they've done in the past. It's very representative and it has a lot of energy to it. And I think that's kind of what I want. We've had enough of these devastated post-pandemic records, and I'd like to hear some life and some force from black metal, and I think that this is a very big heavy metal album that does that, and as such, I was very enthusiastic about it in response, giving it a very high recommendation. Probably, I think one of my higher recommendations overall this year, up there in the top 5. And I think it's just a great return for one of my favorite bands, as well as just a great example of how to do it. So go ahead and check out more of my thoughts in this review if you'd like to, and check out the album it released last week.